No. Honest to God, please, no. Has Hollywood learned nothing, guys? I'm just questioning life right now. What is life? Somebody please tell me what life is, because I'm not really understanding this article as a whole. It says, sequel to Netflix's Death Note film, and I'm seriously questioning how this even managed to happen in the first place. Like, somebody please tell me what life is right now, please. So, we have this article from Anime News Network, guys. And apparently, as I just said, the Death Note film from, Netflix is getting a sequel. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure how this happened.
Oh boy, I've waited a long time for this. This is something I've wanted to talk about for so long, and when this drama first started, I was worried I missed out on my chance to talk about this, but I'm so glad that I now have an excuse to be able to come back and talk about this drama with the reveal of the sequel to the infamous Death Note live action. And I'm very excited. Now, this isn't a review of the movie because that's already been beaten into the ground, so much so as it's just me wanting to cover the drama and fallout of the movie. Now, if you are interested in me reviewing the movie for whatever reason, let me know in the comments section. I'll consider it. Now, this is mostly me wanting to cover the drama and send a message to some pissed off fanboys that need to be brought down a notch. Because quite frankly, I am very disappointed in the Death Note fanbase that they would be so childish and petty. And it's funny to me because whenever an adaptation to anything gets made, it's always the same shit. Fans throw a hissy fit over the slightest, tiniest little change, and then they go insane and start sending death threats. And I've always laughed at this because these people clearly fail to comprehend what an adaptation even is. Like, they don't seem to get that there's a difference between an adaptation and a shot-for-shot remake. Now, what these morons want is they want it to be literally shot-for-shot, absolutely no changes. Guess what? That kind of defeats the purpose, because at that point, you might as well just go watch the fucking anime or play the original game. Adaptations do need to have some changes to make it stand out. Now, some changes are acceptable, others are not. However, though, these fans don't seem to understand that. And the thing is a lot of people like to blame Adam Wingard for what happened with the adaptation. However, let me ask you something. If you are working with a incompetent retard, how good do you think you can make a movie? In all honesty, because here's the funny thing about it. When I first heard about the live-action Death Note, I did some research into it. And when I saw that Adam Wingard was directing it, I was excited because, unlike most people, I am very familiar with Adam Wingard's work. He is a damn good director. He's very talented. Anyone who's seen Your Next, VHS, or even The Guest, if you saw his movie The Guest and you heard that Adam Wingard was directing a live-action Death Note, you, like me, probably would have been excited for it. So this isn't the fault of Adam Wingard. No, what this is the fault of is studios hiring retards. Now, let me ask you something. If the person you are working with has written such classics as Fant Four Stick and the Lazarus Effect, how good can you make that movie look if you have to put up with a script written by someone of that caliber? And it's quite unfair to the guy because, sure, the writing may have been weak and the writer sucks at what he does, but it's unfair to attack the only motherfucker on the team that actually did his fucking job correctly. Same with Willem Dafoe. There's only so much blame you can put on the director because there is this idea that for some reason directors have absolute control and they can do whatever they want, what they says goes. That is in fact false. If you actually believe that's how the process works, you're an idiot. Now sure, there are some rare cases where directors do get full control over their products, like Mike Flanagan, who was the writer, editor, and director of the movie Oculus, and he got to make it exactly how he wanted it to be. However, not all cases are going to be that way. And you see, when Warner Brothers originally got the rights to make the Death Note live action, they pitched a trilogy. You see, Warner Brothers is not entirely incompetent, even though they killed the DCEU, but that's besides the point. You see, they understand that the events of the anime cannot be crunched into one fucking movie. It's not possible. So they pitched a trilogy. And the writer they originally had actually did write Light very close to character and had a good script. So again, this is the fault of choosing to switch to a incompetent writer. When Netflix got the rights to the Death Note live action from Warner Brothers, they decided for whatever reason to switch writers, and look how well that turned out for them. They hired a fucking moron. And what's funny is, when I originally saw the lineup for the live action Death Note, I see Willem Dafoe, brilliant. I see Adam Wingard, really good. And then I see the writer. I look up the writer, and it boasts on his filmography Fant Four Stick and Lazarus Effect. I knew exactly how this was going to play out, because I knew that when this movie came out, the directing would be good. The acting would be good for the most part. Willem Dafoe would kill it as Ryuk, but the writing would be really, really bad. Guess what? I was correct. I predicted it perfectly. Because it really is the fault of the writer, who clearly doesn't know what he's doing. He is clearly a talentless hack. The film itself, the directing is really, really good. The acting, while meh in some areas, is really great in other areas. And here's another thing that also slipped by the fans. Adam Wingard is actually a fan of Death Note. He is actually familiar with the source material. When Adam Wingard was a teenager, he and his brother, they would go to video stores and they would rent things. They would see anime at times, and they saw Death Note. And he was really impressed by it. And Adam Wingard always felt that he would always be the right man for the job of making a live-action Death Note. And you know what? Given the guy's work, I'm willing to believe him. And I know for a fact that if it was up to Adam Wingard, he would not have allowed that garbage script to get past anyone. And it's sad. It really is. Not only for Adam Wingard, because his chance to actually make a Death Note live action, which may have very well been a dream come true for him, especially considering him being a fan of it. Most people would be very humble and excited, but despite him doing his best work, it ended up being a disaster, not due to his fault, but due to the fault of working with a hack. And it sucks, because when I end up seeing that idiot fans go sending Adam Wingard death threats and torment him to the point where he has to quit Twitter, just like the Tite Kubo situation, I can't help but to shake my head in disbelief and pity at how moronic and idiotic these fans are. It's so bad when you are so pathetic that you make other people in the fan base be ashamed of being a fan of whatever it is they are a fan of. That is pretty sad. When I saw how the Death Note fans, or at least a good majority of them, reacted to this live action, I was embarrassed to be a Death Note fan, because I didn't want to be associated with all these butthurt psychopaths just because they didn't get their way. Oh no, boo-hoo, we didn't get the Death Note movie exactly the way we wanted it. It was so different, Light is so stupid. How about you send death threats to the moronic writer? Or how about don't send death threats at all and be above the petty squabble instead of behaving like a bunch of psychopaths? Seriously, these are the kind of rabid fans that really piss me off, because it's because of rabid fans like this that I cease to be fans of things. For example, Dragon Ball Z has one of the worst fan bases ever, and it's because of that fan base I am no longer a Dragon Ball Z fan. I'm embarrassed to even call myself one. So, thanks a lot, Dragon Ball fan base. You made me not only hate your fan base, but you made me end up developing hatred for the actual show itself. So, yeah. Now, does this make me not want to be a Death Note fan anymore? No. At least, not yet. However, this doesn't mean that I'm not still disappointed and annoyed with these fans. Because rather than just doing things the sensible way, they decide to do it in the immature, childish way. Now, when I saw this live action, here's the way I saw it. I saw it as a Elseworld story. A story taking place in the overall Death Note universe, just from a alternative perspective. So here's how I viewed it. I viewed it as Death Note, but if Death Note was shot from the American perspective, because I don't know if you noticed this, but there is a lot of differences between Japan and us. And when I heard about this, I thought it'd be interesting to see, well, what if Death Note took place from an American perspective? An American Light, an American L, so on and so forth. So I thought it would be an interesting concept. And funny thing about it, if you're familiar with the average high school kid in America compared to the average high school kid in Japan, you can see that these two vast interpretations of light make a lot of sense, and it says more about the culture of America rather than the actual character itself. Because if you're familiar with how high schoolers act in real life in America, guess what? They do act like the light in the live action. Now, does that necessarily save the writing? No, it's still bad. However, when you look at it from this perspective, it puts you in a much better mindset. And I personally found it pointless to expect this to be a shot-for-shot remake, because here's the thing, that already happened. There was already a live-action Death Note made in Japan that already did this, that already followed it close to the source material. However, even that movie made changes, but nobody flipped out at the changes made in that live-action. Why is that? Who the hell knows? A lot of the time, these fans aren't really consistent with their hatred or their behavior. Now, I'm not going to act like that all this stuff necessarily justifies the movie, because unfortunately the movie does have serious writing flaws, and there are areas where it does fail. However, though, it's important to look at the bigger picture, rather than just turning into a bunch of rabid dogs and attacking a man that, quite frankly, doesn't really deserve it. And this is what made me really want to talk about this. Because at first I thought this was just going to be your average movie comes out, fans freak out, end of story. Then I hear about the death threats. And then I hear about other Death Note fans or anime fans that aren't raging, retarded fanboys. And they end up having to call out these fans and say, look, you are embarrassing us. You are not only embarrassing the Death Note fan base, you are embarrassing the anime fan base. You are making anime fans look like a bunch of psychopathic, retarded man-children. So, wow, congratulations. So all you morons out there that decided to behave this way, you are making yourselves look bad, you're making the fan base look bad, you're making anime fans look bad. And personally, I'm glad that a sequel is being made. Because you know what? It is a gigantic middle finger to these butthurt fans. And you know what? They honestly deserve it. Because here's another thing you idiot fans don't ever think about a lot of the time. When you throw shit fits like this, guess what? That's free publicity. So you unnecessarily gave the Death Note live action more publicity than what they probably spent on trailers. In fact, they probably didn't even need to spend money on a trailer, because you fans would give them all the publicity that they need with all your butthurt freakouts. So, yeah, at first I was kind of annoyed and had to shake my head in pity. Now I'm honestly kind of laughing. I really am. Because while it's a sad situation, it's also a very funny situation when you look at it in hindsight. Now, will this upcoming movie be good? Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. But here's the thing. I continue to look forward to it, because I understand the value of perspective. You see, there are countless interpretations out there of Superman and Batman. Whenever there's a new version of Batman or Superman, do people throw a shit fit over it? No. Why can't we have different interpretations of Death Note? I find Death Note to be such an interesting show. I think Death Note benefits from having different perspectives and different stories being told. And I actually kind of liked the Death Note live action. Do I think it's as good as the anime? No. Do I think it's as good as the Japanese live actions? No. But I do find it to be interesting because I like seeing the story of Death Note from different perspectives. And it's kind of sad that some of these fans don't see it that way. There are some that do look at it from that perspective. And there are plenty of YouTubers that also said the same exact thing. Like The Anime Man and Anime America, to quote a couple. However, though, of course, the main audience, the vocal minority, they didn't. They decided to do the cool mainstream thing to do, which is blindly attack the adaptation and everyone involved, whether it's their fault or not. And you know what? You are part of the problem. And you will continue continue to be part of the problem.